Switzerland, the land of chocolate, watches, and mountains so perfect they look photoshopped by God. But here's the thing, behind all that calm is a country built like a panic room. They've got bridges wired with explosives, tunnels that double as air bases, and every man, and I mean every man, trained to handle a rifle like it's part of his national wardrobe. So yeah, neutral? Sure, but neutral with a scope and a plan. This is a place that's never been conquered, never joined the European Union, and somehow managed to become richer than pretty much everyone who ever tried. And it got me thinking, how does a country with no coastline, no empire, and basically no drama end up running half the world's money and living like the rest of us are just visiting Earth on the wrong difficulty setting? Maybe it's personal curiosity. According to 23andMe, about a third of my DNA is from here. Schaffhausen, Zurich, Bern, Grissens. So maybe somewhere deep in my genome, there's a tiny Swiss accountant guarding a vault and judging my life choices. But it's not just about ancestry. It's about design, because Switzerland didn't stumble into success. It engineered it like one of its watches, with precision, paranoia, and a refusal to do things like everyone else. This is how a tiny mountain confederation outsmarted empires, dodged world wars, built a fortress beneath paradise, and became the most quietly powerful country on the planet. If you look at a map of Europe in the Middle Ages, it's chaos. Kings fighting popes, empires swallowing smaller empires. It's basically Game of Thrones, but with worse hygiene. And right in the middle of it all, there's Switzerland, or rather, what would become Switzerland. At the time, it wasn't a country. It was a patchwork of Alpine farming communities wedged between powers like the Holy Roman Empire and the Habsburgs, who, let's be honest, were kind of the HOA of medieval Europe. In 1291, three mountain valleys, Uri, Schweiz, and Unterwalden, decided they'd had enough of being told what to do. They signed an agreement called the Federal Charter of 1291, basically a medieval version of let's mind our own business and back each other up if anyone messes with us. They called it the Eternal Alliance, and it worked. That's the seed that eventually grew into what we now know as the Swiss Confederation, or officially in Latin, Confederatio Helvetica, which is why to this day the Swiss abbreviation is CH. So when you see CH on a Swiss car, it's not some secret club, it's Latin, because even back then Switzerland understood branding. But this alliance wasn't built for glory or conquest, it was built for survival. They weren't empire builders. They were mountaineers, shepherds, and traders, people who understood that their best defense wasn't a wall, it was geography. Imagine trying to march an army through those mountains in the 1300s. No roads, no drones, just ice, cliffs, and angry farmers who know every trail better than you ever could. Invading Switzerland was like trying to steal honey from a beehive made of granite. Over the next few centuries, more regions joined the alliance: Zurich, Bern, Lucerne, each one adding strength to this strange little confederation of fiercely independent cantons. Each canton ran itself, made its own laws, collected its own taxes, but agreed on one simple rule: if someone attacks one of us, they attack all of us. Sound familiar? Yeah, NATO owes these mountain guys a thank you note. By the late Middle Ages, the Swiss had a reputation for unity and courage. Small, decentralized, but unbeatable in the mountains. They became so effective at defending their homeland that other countries started hiring them to fight for them. That's how the Swiss mercenary tradition began. And it's the next twist in the story, how these peaceful farmers became Europe's most feared soldiers before they ever became bankers. The Swiss didn't just invent neutrality, they earned it. One battle, one alliance, one stubborn mountain valley at a time. So you've got these stubborn mountain communities who've mastered the art of not being conquered. What do you do next? Well, apparently you start renting yourselves out. Yep, for a few hundred years, Switzerland's biggest export wasn't cheese or watches, it was soldiers. Picture this, the 1400s. Europe is a revolving door of wars, crusades, and noble families with unresolved anger issues. Everyone's fighting and everyone needs troops. And the Swiss, they're sitting up there in the Alps, strong, disciplined, and dirt poor. So they turned their greatest skill, organized violence, into a business model. Imagine Fiverr, but for elite pikemen. They became legendary for it. The Swiss pikemen fought in tight, impenetrable squares, a human hedgehog of spears that could stop knights and cavalry dead in their tracks. They fought with such precision that European kings started saying things like, if you want to win a war, hire the Swiss. They were the special forces of the Renaissance, loyal, brutal, efficient. And they built a reputation so strong it still exists today, because the Pope's Swiss Guard, those colorful soldiers protecting Vatican City, are the descendants of this tradition, recruited from Switzerland, trained for loyalty, and sworn to protect the Pope, even to death. In 1527, when Rome was sacked by the troops of the Holy Roman Empire, 189 Swiss guards defended the Pope. Only 42 survived, and the Pope made it out alive. That's how deep their code of loyalty runs. But here's the twist. After centuries of renting themselves out, the Swiss eventually realized something. Every time they fought someone else's war, a lot of them didn't come home. So they stopped. In 1515, after a massive defeat at the Battle of Marignano, the Swiss decided enough was enough. They signed peace with France, pulled their mercenaries back, and declared they'd never again take sides in foreign wars. And that was the birth of Swiss neutrality. Not from pacifism, but from exhaustion. They learned that being a hired sword might make you rich, but staying home, guarding your own mountains, and letting everyone else destroy each other, that could make you invincible. So they put down their pikes, picked up their ledgers, and turned from soldiers for hire into bankers for everyone. Because if there was one thing the Swiss figured out early, it's that money lives longer than mercenaries. After centuries of fighting other people's wars, Switzerland did what every burned out mercenary dreams of. It retired early and opened a bank. The shift was genius. They'd spent generations mastering discipline, precision, and trust, and those are the same traits you need when you're handling other people's money. By the 1700s and 1800s, Swiss bankers had become the quiet middleman of Europe's chaos. While kings and empires were busy invading each other, the Swiss were busy calculating compound interest. They realized neutrality wasn't just a moral position, it was a business strategy. If you're the one country that refuses to pick sides, suddenly everyone feels safe parking their money with you. You can bomb your neighbors, sure, but you still need somewhere to keep your gold. Switzerland perfected the art of being everyone's trusted vault, and they codified that idea after the Congress of Vienna in 1815, where Europe officially recognized Switzerland's permanent neutrality. No alliances, no wars, no drama. Just banks, chocolate, and mountain goats. Now here's where it gets interesting. Neutrality wasn't passive, it was engineered. Because if you're going to tell the world you're neutral, you'd better have a military strong enough to make everyone believe you. And the Swiss did. Their neutrality made them indispensable. During both world wars, they were the go-between. Diplomats, mediators, and money handlers. Geneva became the HQ for humanitarian work, home to the Red Cross founded in 1863, and Zurich became the financial safe haven for the entire continent. Then came 1934, the year the Swiss passed their banking secrecy law, making it a criminal offense to reveal a client's identity. That one move turned Switzerland from a nice place to bank into the place to bank. They basically invented privacy mode before the internet existed. That law attracted everyone's money, good, bad, and morally complicated. Dictators, kings, corporations, and regular people who just didn't trust their governments. It wasn't always clean. After World War II, Switzerland was accused of hoarding Nazi gold and hiding Jewish assets, a dark chapter that forced them to reckon with the consequences of being neutral. But by then, the global reputation was sealed. Switzerland was the world's vault. And what's wild is the system worked. The Swiss franc became one of the world's most stable currencies. Their bank became symbols of reliability, and their national identity became a paradox. Strictly neutral, yet globally powerful. They'd found a way to stay rich by staying out of the fight, not through domination, but through trust. And in a century defined by empires and revolutions that made them almost alien. While the rest of Europe built armies, Switzerland built credibility. And in the long run, that turned out to be the strongest defense of all. Switzerland looks like the last place on earth that would be preparing for war. I mean, this is the land of fondue, neutrality, and cowbells. But here's the twist. Behind all that calm, Switzerland is basically a Bond villain's dream house, because underneath those postcard-perfect mountains lies one of the most elaborate defense systems ever built. It's called the National Redoubt, and it was the ultimate Swiss Plan B. The idea was simple. If anyone invades, destroy every road and bridge leading in, retreat into the Alps, and wait them out from inside a fortress carved into the mountains. Every major bridge was rigged with explosives. Every tunnel had a demolition charge, and behind every valley was a cannon waiting. At one point, Switzerland had over 20,000 hidden fortifications disguised as barns, chalets, and even churches. There were bunkers behind waterfalls, artillery batteries hidden in hillsides, and entire villages with secret air vents sticking out of the grass. It's like if Disney designed a survivalist utopia. And these weren't tiny shelters. Some could house hundreds of soldiers for months. They had kitchens, hospitals, communication centers, even secret rail lines to move tanks inside mountains. During the Cold War, they took it even further. By law, every Swiss citizen had to have access to a nuclear fallout shelter, enough bunker space for the entire population. Most homes and apartment buildings still have one today. So while most countries are arguing about who had the bigger missile, Switzerland quietly built a nationwide panic room. They called it armed neutrality. And it wasn't just talk. If anyone crossed their borders, they'd blow up the valleys, hide in the mountains, and turn Switzerland into a fortress that no army could hold. And Hitler knew this. When the Nazis drew up invasion scenarios, the Swiss terrain and defenses were such a nightmare that even Hitler decided it wasn't worth it. He'd rather go around. So yeah, they stayed neutral, but not because they were fragile, because they were untouchable. A country that literally built peace through preparedness. It's the most Swiss thing ever. If you want peace, engineer it into the landscape. World War II, the biggest moral test in modern history, and somehow Switzerland managed to walk through it untouched. No occupation, no major battles, no bombings, just a small Alpine country surrounded by Nazis and fascists, quietly saying, yeah, we'll sit this one out. It sounds like luck, but it wasn't. By 1940, Switzerland was completely encircled by Axis powers. Germany to the north, Italy to the south, Vichy France to the west, Austria already annexed. They were literally an island of democracy in a sea of dictatorships. So how did they survive? Well, first, the math didn't add up for Hitler. Invading Switzerland meant marching uphill into a maze of fortified valleys where every bridge was rigged to blow and every farmer owned a rifle. Even the Nazis preferred low-hanging fruit. And second, Switzerland was useful. They traded with everyone. They bought German coal, sold machinery, handled gold, and quietly funneled information and diplomacy for the Allies too. They were neutral in the way a referee is neutral, still on the field, but not getting punched. It was a tightrope act. Their banks held assets for the Allies, the Axis, and ordinary citizens just trying to protect their savings from the chaos. And that created problems. After the war, investigations found that Swiss banks had stored Nazi gold, some of it looted from occupied countries, even melted down from victims' possessions. They also made it difficult for Jewish families to reclaim their accounts. That revelation hit hard. The same system that protected Switzerland's neutrality had also protected its secrecy, and that secrecy came at a moral cost. To their credit, Switzerland eventually faced it. In the 1990s, they set up restitution funds, opened archives, and acknowledged the dark side of neutrality. Because staying out of war doesn't always mean staying innocent. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Neutrality is messy. You can't stand in the middle of a burning house without getting a little smoke on you. And yet, despite it all, Switzerland emerged from the war intact. Its cities unbombed, its economy thriving, its democracy stronger than ever. While much of Europe had to rebuild from ashes, the Swiss started the post-war era already at the top of the mountain, literally and economically. They'd proven that you can survive history's worst nightmare if you're disciplined, well-armed, and maybe just a little bit paranoid. But surviving was only half the story. The other half was preparing for whatever came next. Because after World War II, Switzerland doubled down on the idea that every citizen is a soldier, every village a fortress, and every mountain a safe. If you ask most people what comes to mind when they think of the Swiss Army, they'll probably say the knife. You know, the multi-tool that can open wine, fix a watch, and perform minor surgery. And honestly, that's the perfect metaphor for the Swiss military. Efficient, over-prepared, slightly intimidating. Because here's the thing, Switzerland doesn't have an army. Switzerland is an army. Every able-bodied man between 18 and 34 is conscripted. They go through months of training, keep their uniforms and rifles at home, and serve in the reserves until they're about 50. This means statistically, 1 out of every few men you see on a Swiss train is technically a sniper. It's like if the entire country lived inside a militia-themed version of IKEA, everything in its place, and everything doubles as defense equipment. And it's not just military, it's cultural. The Swiss love precision marksmanship. They hold Schützenfests, or shooting festivals, where entire towns show up to compete. It's not weird, it's national pride. Instead of bring your own beer, it's bring your own rifle. It's the only country where you can finish a shooting competition, win a medal, and then go home to make fondue. But the purpose isn't aggression, it's deterrence. They don't keep rifles at home because they expect to use them. They do it because it sends a message. We're not looking for a fight, but if you bring one here, you're going to regret it. And here's the paradox. Despite all of that firepower, Switzerland has one of the lowest crime rates and lowest homicide rates in the world. That's because guns there aren't symbols of rebellion. They're symbols of responsibility. Every bullet is tracked. Every weapon is registered. Every citizen understands that owning a rifle isn't about power, it's about protection. And that mindset, disciplined, precise, prepared, bleeds into everything else, their economy, their politics, even their punctual trains. Because in Switzerland, everything is connected to the same philosophy. Plan for the worst, build for the best, and never rely on luck. If you ever want to see what competence looks like, come to Switzerland. Everything here just works. Trains leave at 9:02 and somehow still arrive early. Garbage is sorted better than most governments, and the Wi-Fi in a mountain hut will probably be faster than yours back home. This isn't luck, it's design. Switzerland runs on one of the most fascinating systems in the world, direct democracy. While other countries argue endlessly about what their leaders should do, the Swiss just vote on everything. Want to change tax laws? Vote. Want to ban synthetic pesticides? Vote. Want to decide whether every cow in the country should have horns? Yeah, they literally voted on that. They hold referendums multiple times a year, and citizens, not politicians, have the final say. That means the government isn't some faraway authority, it's more like a nationwide to-do list that everyone helps manage. And yet, despite all that democracy, it's incredibly decentralized. The country is divided into 26 cantons, each with its own constitution, tax rate, education system, and laws. They can even choose their own official language: German, French, Italian, or Romansh. So yeah, Switzerland has 4 national languages, but somehow fewer political arguments than your family group chat. The reason it works is trust and precision. Each canton handles what it knows best, and the national government only steps in when absolutely necessary. It's like 26 small startups that share one brand name and a mountain range. The result? Some of the highest living standards in the world. Low corruption, excellent healthcare, safe cities, and a currency so stable it makes the US dollar look like an energy drink stock. But the real secret isn't the money or the mountains, it's the mindset. The Swiss don't chase growth for the sake of it. They chase balance. They'll pay high taxes if it means good public services. They'll follow the rules because they trust the rules were made by them. It's not obedience, it's ownership. And that might be what the rest of the world keeps missing. While most countries swing between chaos and reform, Switzerland quietly proves that slow, steady, and boring can actually be revolutionary. The trains run on time not because they have to, but because everyone agreed that they should. When you hear Swiss, what comes to mind? Watches, chocolate, cheese, banks, mountains, basically everything that screams, we don't do chaos here. And that's not a coincidence. Switzerland has somehow turned competence itself into a brand. Take watches, for example. The Swiss didn't invent timekeeping, they just perfected it until everyone else gave up. Brands like Rolex, Omega, and Patek Philippe turned punctuality into luxury. When you buy a Swiss watch, you're not just buying gears, you're buying the promise that time itself will behave properly. That same mindset spills into everything else they make. Swiss chocolate, smooth, consistent, flawless. Swiss knives, folded perfection that can open a wine bottle in a snowstorm. Swiss trains, run like they were programmed by NASA. If it's Swiss, it works, and if it doesn't, someone's losing sleep over it. Even diplomacy is part of the brand. Geneva is home to the United Nations European headquarters, the World Health Organization, and the International Red Cross. When the world argues, they meet here to stop arguing. And that's the kind of genius of Switzerland. Their neutrality became their marketing strategy. They realized something simple: if people trust you with their time, their money, and their lives, they'll trust you with everything else too. And that's how a nation smaller than South Carolina became a global powerhouse. Not through conquest, not through oil or resources, but through reputation. The Swiss brand is so strong that even their flag, that little white cross on red, feels like a quality guarantee. It's one of only 2 square national flags in the world, because of course it is. It's symmetrical, balanced, perfectly engineered for national OCD. And maybe that's the real secret. Switzerland doesn't just build products, it builds trust. And in a world that runs on uncertainty, that might be the most valuable export of all. What can the world learn from Switzerland? There's something poetic about Switzerland. It's a country that's mastered the art of balance between peace and power, wealth and modesty, tradition and innovation. And maybe that's not surprising. When I did my 23andMe test, it said about 31% of my DNA came from this region. Schaffhausen, Zurich, Bern, Grissens. Maybe that's why part of me feels oddly at home here. Or maybe it's just the cheese. What fascinates me most is that Switzerland didn't get here by accident. They engineered their peace, not through treaties or luck, but through design. They've built a society that's both fiercely local and globally trusted. A democracy that actually functions, a military that no one fears because it's built to protect, not to invade, and an economy that thrives without drama. There's this quiet confidence here, a sense that perfection isn't about being flashy, it's about being consistent. They don't need slogans or revolutions, they just work. And that's kind of radical in its own way. Maybe the world doesn't need more power struggles. Maybe it needs more countries willing to say, we're good, we'll just make everything work a little bit better tomorrow. And maybe that's what makes Switzerland special. It's proof that civilization doesn't have to be loud to be strong. That peace isn't the absence of preparation, it's the reward for it. So if there's one thing we can learn from Switzerland, it's this. You don't have to dominate the world to define it. You just have to design it carefully, patiently, and with a sense of purpose that never wavers, because sometimes neutrality isn't weakness, it's wisdom. By the way, I've put together a free newsletter called The Passport. It's where I share behind-the-scenes insights on life abroad, cost of living, visas, and the places that might just change your life. You can sign up at thepassport.co. It's completely free. And if you're actually thinking about making the move, check out my other channel, The Americano, where I cover what it's really like living abroad, from residency strategies to quality of life comparisons and everything in between. And for those of you who think globally when it comes to opportunity, whether that's real estate, business investments, aircraft, yachts, or international deals, I also publish the Brokor newsletter. It's free too, and it's evolving into a full platform that connects serious buyers and sellers worldwide. If you're the kind of person who likes seeing what's for sale in Monaco one week and Medellin the next, Brokor's for you. I'm Matt, this is Places to Go. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.